Welcome back. This is another episode of the Epic Epoch podcast. We are right smack in the middle of patch 085, which means we're still kind of waiting until September, which is the next major content update. But even though we're kind of waiting, we got stuff to talk about. So we're going to keep doing this until we run out of things to talk about, and then we will wait for September in the big update. I'm beside myself. I'm Perry. I'm your host. Welcome back. Glad to have you here. With me, as always, is my co-host,
Dread from Epic Builds.
Dread, thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Taking time out of your busy schedule. And we have a special guest here today. This is someone who has been on the podcast before. Jay, welcome back.
Hey guys, what's up? Me, Jay, creator of Salt the Wound, best unique in all of Last Epoch.
I think Salt the Wound
soon, though.
I think Salt the Wound is not only strong, but it's also like It's great. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Like, it's not overbearing. It has a good place in the game. And apparently it's going to be changed. Is that what I hear?
Well, ailments are going to be changed. So.
It's getting spooky. I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay, so that's...
Although personally, I think it's kind of potentially a good change, especially for the item.
Oh wait, do we know what the change is going to be for Salt the Wound already?
I do. Because Traz messaged me about it, saying the change to ailments is going to impact my item, and they wanted my input on it. And like, is this okay? Exactly what they didn't do.
If you're here live on Twitch right now, you'll realize that Last Epoch Game just hosted us. So welcome to everyone else who's coming on over right now. Is it okay if JayTheProduct tells us what's going on with the gloves? Do we get to know? Can I hear that?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
It's a good question. All right. We'll wait to see if any of the devs answer that. But so before we jump into our first couple topics for the day, I want to say, first of all, Jay, welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you here. What have you two been up to in the past week or so? Because I know there were some thunderstorms. There were some technical difficulties with having this podcast last week. What's been going on?
I lost power for about a day and a half, maybe, including the day we were going to do the podcast on. Like, thunderstorms just ravaged my poor little town. So,
and your dog ate your homework too, and you weren't able to come for the podcast. Yeah. Yep. Same old story.
my bed just went down the street with a flood. It was terrible.
Cool.
You know how it is.
And then Dread, I think you're still playing some Path of Exile in the background, right?
Mm-hmm. I've been going hardcore on Path of Exile. I've been working on it a lot, and I'm kind of happy that I have been, because it kind of puts all of my thoughts about Last Epoch into a much bigger perspective now that I've played them both closely now, and now I'm like back in the game in terms of Path of Exile. Like, I'm good at it again. Well, good at it. Good enough, anyways. And it's to the point now where I can actually talk about these things and talk about like what makes a healthy ARPG and stuff like that. Because you know, no matter what you say, it is very like Path of Exile is very successful, and there's a reason for that too, right? So I'm thinking of things that made them successful that LE could do, and vice versa. Like, for instance, recently with the Recombinator stuff, that's something LE already had, with just making it so items on the ground were useful again.
Mm-hmm. I hear that. So I want to ask myself the same question of what have I been doing for the past 2 weeks. So I'm continuing to play the weekend tournaments in Last Epoch. Honestly, if these weekend tournaments that Vision GL hosts weren't going on, my Last Epoch content would be like substantially lowered. Like, I don't really want to play Last Epoch and develop my own characters and whatnot. I've been doing that for a long time already, but just the fact that these weekend races give me like a nice cycle of like things to do and new builds to try. And like, we've had, Spellblade last weekend, and then Lich before that, and Forge Guard right now. And every time one of these weekend tournaments pops up, I'm playing a new build. So like, it's the same builds that exist, or like these things have been possible for a while, but I've never played them before. And I'm still having a lot of fun. So that's probably going to dry up at some point, but in the short term, I'm having a great time. So I'm still playing Last Epoch in the regular. Yeah, so that brings us to our first topic of conversation. Dread, you were just mentioning that having a better understanding of action RPGs as a broader genre is giving you time to reflect on Last Epoch as well. The big note that I have on top of my notepad document is mana and resources. So what are we talking about today?
So I wanted to talk about mana specifically and how it's handled in different ARPGs. And Jay, I'm gonna need your help a little bit here in terms of Diablo 3 because I have no idea how it works there.
I love that you got me off this because anytime anyone brings up mana in Last Epoch for me, I get mana
I know.
and resources specifically.
Wait,
are
I don't
big.
know your whole spiel about mana. Do you
They're
not like
kind
it?
of a tilt point for me because I personally feel like resources in video games in general can be really good and engaging and fun to play around. But I feel like for the most part, Last Epoch specifically has not quite been able to hit the nail on the head with how they want resources and mana to feel, and that like, okay, here's a big thing that I want you to think about right now.
Tell me.
All the top builds in Last Epoch right now, that I know of at least, that I can think of on the top of my head, current meta, they either completely negate mana, as in the skills themselves don't use mana, like, or they have so much generation of a resource that they don't need to actually think about mana as a mechanic. I don't feel that there's ever a point where you're making fun or like actual engaging like serious decisions and consequences about how you either outgear or outscale or outskill mana. It's just, oh, I'm just going to pick the skill that doesn't use it. Or, oh, I'm going to pick the skill combination that completely doesn't utilize it or renders it a non-issue. And I don't think that's fun or engaging.
Okay, go ahead.
I said to counter that point a little bit, not to say anything, but to counter that point, isn't that kind of part of the ARPG kind of like drive is to refine your build to the point where you don't have to care about mana? At least that's how it is in Path of Exile, right? Because like in the beginning when you're leveling and stuff, you have to worry about mana, yada yada yada, and then eventually you nail it away with like minus channel cost rings, or you just get enough regen and stuff like that, or you use life tap in some situations and stuff like that. And Last Epoch obviously follows the same track, where on some builds you just try to make it so you don't have to think about mana as much. That's another point I wanted to bring up.
But I think the issue in Last Epoch with that is more so that like the builds where you're having to gear to not worry about mana are worse because of it. And
So
the
I
builds
tend
where
to
you're
be
having to use a skill to like, unless it's just like focus on a Sork, and I mean everybody hates focus on Sork, you know, they're not better for it. It's always like, oh man, I wish I was just using a skill that didn't worry about mana to begin with. Or you're on a sentinel and pressing Volatile Reversal every 4 seconds.
Oh, but it's so much fun. I tend to be on Dread's side of this argument right now, where like action RPGs for me are about you find a problem, you fix it. You find a problem, you fix it. You find a problem, you fix it.
I agree, by the way, and then, wholeheartedly. I just don't think Ellie does it very well currently.
So
I don't think
so. Let's start on one side of the spectrum then. Is there a skill in Last Epoch right now? Because I think you're the one between the three of us that has the strongest opinion on this. Is there a skill in Last Epoch right now that deals with mana well? Like you really like that it has like this complex relationship or something?
I mean, no, that's my problem.
You don't like any of them? Is anything close?
Not that like really like goes, oh yeah, because of mana, this is better. I think maybe I kind of people won't agree with this because it's such a clunky and like you either love it or hate it playstyle. But I like Shatter Strike because it flows in that you dump all your mana and then you mana strike back to full mana and then you dump your mana again and you play like that. And there's a couple of skills that work like that. I like Spellblade and I feel it feels the best, but I still don't think it's a particularly good way of like
Sentinel has similar mechanics to that, but you don't see people spamming the mana bar for Forge Strike, do you?
No, exactly.
So let me throw out a couple examples that come to mind, and you can tell me like whether they're garbage, whether they're okay, or whether they're like creme de la creme, right?
Yeah.
What about Hail of Arrows building mana regeneration?
You only need like 12 mana regen. Hail of Arrows, it's like one piece of gear.
All right. What about?
Well, we can expand on that real quick. We can expand on that. So resources don't necessarily have to be mana, right? Like in this case, the resource is not the mana, the ideology is to have enough mana regen, just enough, so that when your duration ends on your HOA, you have enough mana to cast it again. And I think that's fine. That's fine. If there's builds and skills like that require that little bit of boost just to get to the point where you can cast your skill and not have to worry about your mana as long as you play correctly, right, mind you, I think that's fine.
But I don't think just rolling one bit of mana regen in your gear is like enough to say that makes that playstyle fun or engaging, or like
yeah.
you had to think about that. You just
Yeah.
rolled the mana regen in your gear,
With
and now
HOA,
it's
it's more of
negated.
a play style with the duration
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things to go into that. But continue on, Perry.
Okay. So how about another example of like a mana spender, mana generator relationship? How about like Static Orb with the refund mechanic on Lightning Blast?
I think that's fine.
I've
like
never
that.
used it. I just use Focus because it's so much better. It's so much more efficient. But
Man,
Focus also feels
I
really
hate
bad.
Focus so much.
Yeah, it feels so bad, doesn't it? And it's still the best way to get mana back. Oh, do you see the issue though? Is like, I just don't feel Last Epoch quite ever hits the nail on the head where it's like, oh, yeah, that felt good to.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that. So you've never used Lightning Blast along with Static Orb. Like I'm gonna dig into this.
I mean, I use Lightning Blast, but I use it as my single target.
But do you use it along with Mana Tunnel from Teleport?
No, because I spec my teleport for stun immunity.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do that, then you path through Mana Tunnel. So like this is one of the things about mana that I like so much, which is it's kind of funny,
so
right?
Inconsequential, he doesn't even remember it.
But yeah, see, here's the thing though. Lightning Blast specifically, when spec for single target,
yes,
at least the way I do it, just doesn't use mana anyway, right?
Yes.
Like it doesn't use mana. So even with Mana Funnel, it's never that specifically, like Dread said, is so inconsequential it doesn't matter. And Static Orb chugs mana so hard anyway.
No, it's
that
free.
You still have to use Focus.
It's free! Right, no, wait.
The thing I think we're all ignoring here.
Go ahead.
Is the only reason mana feels bad in a lot of these situations is when you're spending the mana, you feel like as though you're getting enough out of it. Like, for instance, Jay is like that granny that shows up to the store with like a bunch of coupons and annoys everyone. He wants as much as possible out of his mana every single time he casts it. And that's why he likes Static Orb, because guess what? Static Orb, you pop in one direction, sure, it costs mana, but it kills everything on the screen. The problem is there are a lot of. I've talked about this before here. I've talked it before everywhere else. I'm pretty sure everyone, including the devs, are tired of hearing this. But I think that if you're going to be spending mana on something, it should feel impactful. If I cast Judgment and it does like a little boop, and then like it's done, right? That doesn't feel impactful at all, and it feels like as though I wasted my mana. While Static Orb, like I said, the perfect example, they hit the nail on the head. Static Orb, when you cast it, it does everything you need it to do. And you don't need to cast Static Orb more than once most of the time, right, Jay?
Yep. No, not at all. Even in like 300 plus corruption.
So
like,
even with the mana, even with using
Orb.
Focus and some mana regen, it feels fine. Mana's not even that much of a problem because when he casts his abilities, he doesn't struggle. Now, there are plenty of skills right now that struggle when you cast your abilities because of mana, because they don't have enough impact. So either it's high impact and high mana cost, or low impact and low mana cost. That's my
point. I want to say, just real quick, before we get too far away from the Shadow Strike comment, because it sounds like Jay likes Shadow Strike.
I do.
That's one of the reasons I don't play Shadow Strike.
Because you don't have to play stuff.
I hate how much mana. It's 40 mana, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's so high. Like, it's a good skill. It does good damage. I hate playing it.
This is another point that just like the skills that use mana currently, they use too much, I think, anyway. Like, if you like cut a lot of the skills on mana costs in half, they'd probably feel better like overnight.
They absolutely would. Oh my god.
Like, so many of them just cost ever so slightly too much to feel good. Like,
and a lot of them too, like Forge Strike, right? It's like, I don't know about you guys, but whenever you play like a good Forge Strike build, like Bleed Forge Strike, right? you have to cast Forge Strike so many times to get anywhere with anything because the AoE's not big enough because they deleted the ability of being able to run 4 AoE idols. You used to be able to run 4 of them, by the way, and it had plenty of
Still
AoE
wasn't
then.
enough.
I know, it still wasn't enough, but it's way better than it was now. Like, it was playable. Now
Yeah.
it's like, you spend all that mana on Forge Strike, and guess what? The node that turns off the cooldown, that makes it cost more mana. So now it's like, you want to spend more mana by casting it more, and you also are spending more mana because you're turning off the cooldown. And the problem with that specifically is needing that many actions and that much mana to make something happen is just unrealistic in at least last epoch terms. Like, do you really want to stand there and smack a diamond matron 7 times with a forge strike till it dies? Like, or do you want to just cast one cast of lightning blast or fuck
Of static
static
orb.
orb.
Yeah.
There you go. My brain died there.
I mean, if it's a
Static
diamond
orb.
matron, a diamond matron shouldn't die in one hit to anything.
Well,
I got
know.
I got a good example, I think.
Yeah,
Not
go
a
ahead.
better one. Sorry, Dread. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
Earthquake. Have you ever used Earthquake outside of werebear form?
I have one.
It doesn't do damage outside of werebear form.
I love spell EQ. I think spell EQ is excellent.
You were also abusing the Spriggan mana
Yeah,
stuff.
I was just gonna say.
spell EQ before the cultivars thing. But it's garbage because of mana. So I'm with you there.
But that's the point. Is like
yes,
outside of werebear form, you do an Earthquake, and I mean a part of this is also like boss DR, but let's not go against that in this podcast. So you hit a boss or you hit an elite with your Earthquake, and you expect an Earthquake. You know, the ground shatters. The animation is sick. Everything in that AoE should die. If you're outside of werebear form, you've Earthquaked. Solid chance most of the stuff is still alive, and you're now in the negative on mana unless you've stacked mana.
I gotta pause you. It's Earthquake. Human form spell EQ is not garbage. It is very good. Okay. But I agree.
So
with
you've
you.
killed everything.
Yeah, but your mana is garbage. And the reason I don't play that build is you need to use Tempest Strike.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
Now the way you get past the mana issue with Earthquake, right, is you use Spriggan form for what is it, Gardens of Rage, the Vine node?
Yeah, or you just turn into Spriggan and then go out of Spriggan and then you're at back full mana.
Okay, well let's talk more about Bear Earthquake because specifically, I think this is the thing that feels bad. Is you use Spriggan form for one node inside Spriggan form. You never turn into a Spriggan. You never utilize the rest of the points. You have
you do
13
use the Thorn
points that
Shield
don't
stuff.
do anything.
You do use the Thorn Shield stuff.
But should you really be able to if you don't ever turn into a Spriggan? I don't think that's a particularly I don't think that interaction should work. Personally,
there are plenty of problems
because you don't
Spriggan
ever utilize Spriggan form.
I've got a counter argument.
As it is.
I've got a counter argument. Okay, so should it work? Should you be able to take advantage of the node in Spriggan form without being in Spriggan form?
No,
probably not. I'm with you there. However, here's a counter perspective for you. When you're using the that one vine node, Garden of Rage, in order to generate rage while you're in werebear form, you need a way to generate vines. So you either need to sacrifice your boots to have Eterra's Path, or you need to spec Fury Leap, which is not necessarily something you do. And then you need to spec Fury Leap all the way down to the bottom right to get the vine generation, so you're not getting extra damage nodes you could be getting otherwise. Like, you are setting up this Rube Goldberg machine in the background that has this interaction of all vine, and it is cool.
It's almost
but it trivializes everything.
The problem
it's almost there until you're like, but wait, I'm using Spriggan form and I'm not actually using Spriggan form, and should this interaction even really work?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost there, right?
The problem with all of that, the problem with that argument as well, is the fact, okay, well, let's look at the alternative. Let's go to human form, and let's use Earthquake, right? Let's try not to use Spriggan form. Let's just try to just use Earthquake and not any other shenaniganry. Well, what do we have? We have Tempest Strike, which, no.
And we have
mana regen.
Can we say why no for Tempest Strike?
We can have a whole podcast topic on Tempest Strike if you want. But,
no Tempest Strike because it doesn't
I'm
scale on attack speed, and when you use it, you die because monsters attack you.
Now,
Got
mana regen is your best bet. The problem is, you spend every single prefix you can on your rings, your amulet, your relic, your belt, right? And even your staff, if you're that like you can even use the mana regen staff.
That doesn't have any melee damage on it. I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah,
we're playing spell EQ. Get out of here with your melee
spell EQ. Sorry, my bad. We're still in spell EQ.
We're talking about spell EQ because that's the actual EQ build. Now, outside of bear form, anyways. Now, the problem is, even with all of that, just all of it, even if like, okay, fine, you're not playing a druid, you're playing a shaman. You have like extra mana regen, right? You have a way of summoning totems to get the extra mana regen on the tree. You just have all the mana regen in the world. What do you have? Like 30 mana regen? How much does Earthquake cost?
Like
50,
400?
It's
50
or even more than that. Now, the problem is, even with all of your prefixes taken, like that's a lot, by the way. Like, that's a lot of your prefixes where damage could be, crit's a big thing. That's another problem with that. And all of this just to become a much worse Gardens of Rage. Now, tell me what you think about this, but do you think it's kind of bad that like your gear is outclassed by a singular node in a singular, skill that you never use outside of specking it? Sure, you spec other nodes, right? Don't get me wrong, but there's no gearing pressure at all. And that's where the pressure should come from. It shouldn't come from your skills, right? You like when you're in werebear form, let's be fair, yeah, sure, there's skill pressure, but you're in werebear form. You already have 4 extra skills, right? And like they don't matter. Like, you're in werebear form. Like, sure, you're specking, you're specking Fury Leap, but guess what? You get the good version of Fury Leap, i.e. Maul. You don't get bad Fury Leap, right? You don't even have that option on regular EQ. Like, you don't have any of those options. All you have is mana regen or Tempest Strike or swipe, which there is a swipe build that uses EQ for extra damage, but it's mainly using swipe as damage, and it's worse than the lightning swipe variant. But still, all of that just to be a mediocre Gardens of Rage. 1 point on the tree versus like all these prefixes for mana regen.
As long as we're talking about both rage and mana, that puts us talking about primalists, talking about druids and whatnot. I would like to mention that whenever I build mana regeneration, I'm always like shocked at how low the return is for my investment. Like, I'll go from 8 mana regen to 10 mana regen when I put on like, I don't know, an exalted mana regen affix somewhere.
A lot of affixes, man.
You need a lot of affixes to get to like 17, 18, 20, 22 for some of these builds, right?
If you're getting 22 mana regen, I remember
that's high investment.
I was trying to get it on my Sork. It's like every single piece of gear that you can get it apart from 1 or 2.
And this is with all the good Sork mana regen nodes, too. Sork has good mana regen.
Yeah,
it's
like insane.
I think we've talked about this before, but I want to mention it right now as well. Base mana regen is something that I would love to have access to on an item, on a unique, on a class affix, on a mastery tree,
rings.
on a
ring,
rings. On an implicit, somewhere having access to like 1 base mana regeneration would feel awesome.
1 mana regen flat on the ring implicit. That's the ring implicit. There you go.
They could even do it on like the passive tree, right? Like wherever it's percent.
Like you get base flat HP regen in Druid. Why don't you get flat base HP regen in Shaman? There you go. Fixes the entire problem.
This has been mentioned to the developers before, and they've said like they don't want mana to be easy. They want it to be. They want it to like slow down the game. It's like you're either gated by a cooldown artificially, then you can go cooldown Kirby speed, or you're gated by mana, and mana's kind of like a cooldown, or you can use it twice and go negative mana. Like, there is this tension built into the game, and we're supposed to feel like this. One of the reasons that we talked about this at the very beginning of this conversation, there are skills out there that crush the game that never need to deal with this.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was just gonna say, like,
Something about the balance of the skills that feel frustrating with mana and the skills that have no issue with mana whatsoever needs to be reconciled.
And
Yeah.
my counterpoint to that, if I'm allowed to rant again,
No,
is,
you're not. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Wait. No, go ahead.
So let's assume Timmy, right? Timmy loves big skills. Timmy loves like pressing a button and seeing the whole world be destroyed, right? Let's say little Timmy, he sees a commercial for some reason for like Last Epoch, or he sees his favorite streamer playing Last
that
Epoch,
10-cent money's going, baby.
and he sees someone playing Earthquake, right? He's like, oh my god, you press a button, bam, the whole screen's dead. It's great. Earthquake's great. It feels so weighty. It's great. Sound design, I don't like it to be a little bit different. But other than that, it's great, right? Then little Timmy installs Last Epoch. He buys Last Epoch, right? Installs the game. First skill he tries to go for is Earthquake, right? Plays it in the campaign. Uses it once. He's at negative mana. What does little Timmy do? You know what little Timmy does? He chooses the path of the least resistance, which is 2 options. Choose a skill that doesn't care about mana, or quit the game. And I can tell you, right? I've seen this happen. Little Timmy is actually someone we know. Zizaran. Zizaran recently was playing Last Epoch, and he was playing a Racing Strike. He saw people playing a Racing Strike. He got a really good 2 LP Apathy's mod.
Mm-hmm.
Zizaran was playing a Racing Strike. He got a 2 LP Apathy's mod. I was. Get out of here. I
need to show my DMs whenever we talk about Racing Strike.
I enjoyed it. Okay, it was terrible, but I enjoyed it. There was reasons why I hated it.
Was Ziz at all using Volatile Reversal?
Nope.
I don't think he was. I saw a couple clips of that.
He was trying to do it the normal way. He was trying to do it the legitimate way. And he was trying to go the Echo way, where you consume all your mana. And I told him it's gonna be terrible. Like I was in stream with him. I was like talking to him. I was like, hey, this is a bad idea. You're gonna hate your mana. He's like, nah, I'll try it out. A little day later, I look. Yeah, he's not playing Last Epoch anymore. He's playing PoE again. I'm like, I wonder what happened. I asked him.
That was a part of the
Racing Strike, and he quit.
That was part of the dev interview that that Zizaran put on YouTube as well, saying like, "Hey devs, what are you gonna do about mana?" And he specifically brought up like the Racing Strike incident that you're detailing here. Like, he hated it. Yeah, well, if you're not gonna use the one solution that there is, you can't do that.
Yeah,
I wanna hammer in my point that I made at the very beginning here is that the best builds in the game, I don't care. You can say, oh, but this is good, that's good, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. The best builds in the game currently, the top meta builds, are all builds that do not care about mana.
Yep,
that
you're
either
right.
completely negate it, don't use it to begin with, or it's like a flowy playstyle where the mana is inconsequential at the absolute
we can list off a few. Poison Lich, that didn't use mana.
Can I list
Flurry,
off the build that I played recently?
Mana. Go ahead.
I played a beautiful build this past week. I was playing a Spellblade, and it uses a unintended interaction to get around. So it is unclear to me which portion of this should be fixed. But I'll give you the rundown real quick. We were using Mana Strike, which generates mana, which is great. Which I think also might have a bug in it, but we're not going to go into that here. Mana Strike might be bugged. But we were using Mana Strike, and then we were using Surge in order to proc Static and the discharge from Static. And Static has this node that says, like, it costs 1 extra mana, but it deals 1 extra flat damage per static charge you have. So my Static should have cost 230 mana. But because I was proccing it off of Surge, it didn't. It cost 0 mana. And it's one of the smoothest builds I've ever played, and I loved it. And I had a smile on my face the entire time.
This is so something that I did in the beginning.
Why would you say that on stream, Perry? That's gone. Build is deleted.
Because I want the game. I want the game to be fixed. If this is a bug, I want it to be fixed.
Yeah, no, that 100%.
Okay, story time. I played Static in the beginning of the patch. I played Static Spellblade because I was excited because I'm like, Static actually does damage, which it does. And I'm like, okay, let's play it. And then I found that interaction. I'm like, oh my god, it's insane. Ask the devs, no, that's not intended. I'm like, oh, well then, why am I playing Spellblade? I should be playing Sorcerer. And then it killed my mood for the build, and then I haven't touched Static since.
I just well, real quick. I need to shout out to Twitch chat right here. Really important to note that Disintegrate doesn't ignite. So don't play Ignite Disintegrate. Real quick.
Is damage over time.
Go
I've
ahead.
been playing a lot of Diablo 2 recently, right? Because they did the ladder reset,
Mhm.
and I want to talk about how mana as a mechanic, anyway, is like a very antiquated thing. Like it's very old. Like it's an old ass kind of mechanic. Not many games come out with mana bars nowadays, or if they do, there's mana potions or mana leech or something, and that, like, even Diablo 2 had mana potions, you know? And I get the devs want mana to be something we have to build around and something we have to think about and all this. Maybe just drop in mana potions. I don't know. Just
No, they
something to
said
begin
they don't
with.
want to do that.
Nah, I don't want mana potions. I don't want
I don't
mana
want them
leech as
either,
much as
yeah.
they would instantly fix all the issues.
I
Mana's
don't-
old, and I just
Yeah.
don't ultimately enjoy it as a design philosophy from the get-go. I just feel like it takes away more than it adds.
One thing that you're bringing the topic towards, and I want to talk about this as well, is, and this will come to the second part of the title, is mana and resources, specifically, because we do have a resource. It's called rage. It works just like mana, and it's better than mana. But resources in general, like for instance, you know how like marrow shards has that node that makes it deal more damage if you have a minion and you sacrifice it to do that? That's a resource. Sacrifice, that uses resources, your skeletons. In button presses, I guess. And there's a lot of stuff that could be looked into like that, like Path of Exile, perfect example, steal skills. There are some steal skills that feel great to play, and guess what? They have outside resources outside of mana. Steal skills don't cost that much mana. You know what they cost? Shards. You have to maintain your shards to actually deal damage. And, these skills get extra effects based on your steal charges and stuff like that. And that playstyle is not terrible. People do it. People like steal skills. Steal skills are the best way to level currently. You know why? Because instead of dealing with mana, you're dealing with steel bits, or whatever they're called, shards. Yes. Like for instance, the build I'm playing right now, Path of Exile. I'm playing a build called Stone Golem Maw of Mischief Ignite, and the concept of the build is there's a unique called Maw of Mischief that allows you to sacrifice a minion, and you deal fire damage equal to a percentage of the minion's life, and then you scale and ignite off of that, and bing bada boom, you got a good build. And it's actually becoming closer and closer to meta. If like everything gets nerfed next league, like it'll be like the premier bosser. Now the problem, well, the thing with it is it feels great to play because sure, I don't have mana to deal with because PoE, but I have to deal with the resource of stone golems because I can only have 4 and they respawn after 4 seconds. I use 4 bullets in the chamber, bam, I'm out. I gotta wait. Now, the beautiful thing about this is I had to make a change of the build. Having to wait 4 seconds for my golems to respawn was painful. So I had to make actual gearing choices, change my reservations, kick out Tempest Shield, kick out Defiance Banner, lose defenses to incorporate a Herald Purity setup in my main links, which will summon more minions that I can use to pop, and they have a similar amount of damage to the Stone Golem, and allows me to play the build and feel good about myself. It was bad before, and then as soon as I put in the Herald Purity, bam, build felt good. That is an actual decision. That is what I would call a resource decision, and that is an interesting decision. The problem with a lot of these are, it's binary with Last Epoch. Do you have mana? Do you not? You have the negative mana and stuff. Like for instance, with Forge Strike, right? It's like you use your mana, bam, you're out of mana. All right, you gotta wait for a while, and then, but instead, Maw of Mischief, Stone Golem, that hits the entire screen because of Ignite Prolif, while of course, Forge Strike, it has difficulties.
Forge Strike has like much less AoE, and then it doesn't hit multiple times, and like kind of has low damage too.
Yeah, and The problem is you want to spam Forge Strike. With the way Forge Guard is set up with the sword node, you want to spam it. And it looks great when it's spammed. It looks like an intercontinental ballistic missile. It's great when you do it. The problem is mana. And that's like, like for instance, let's say instead, and they kind of did this with a Racing Strike. With a Racing Strike, they had nodes where you get extra charges. Like Void Cleave's a good example. You get extra charges with Void Cleave for the boots, and you spec into it and stuff like that. And that makes your quality of life better. That's a resource that I would rather interact with than mana. And for instance, Forge Strike, you could have like 6 charges or something like that, right? And it costs like 5 mana. And then when you're out of charges, you can spend more mana to keep casting it, but so the way it would work is you have like 6 charges, right? It costs like 5 mana each to use them. Bam, Forge Strike. Bam, Forge Strike. You're out of charges on a single target. Guess what? Now it costs 20 mana. Now you have to either wait for a charge, or you have to spend your mana. Bam, 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 bam. Use all your mana. Yada yada yada. Regen your mana. You know what that does? It makes it so that when you're clearing the monolith, you walk up to a pack, you Forge Strike it twice, didn't have to pay the mana, didn't have to pay that much mana, it feels great. Move to the next pack, bam bam. Move to the next pack, bam bam. Oh wait, I'm out of charges. Okay, I'll wait, get some charges. And that is why focus feels, for that static orb build, feels so good. Oh, good enough anyways, right? Because it's good enough for that, because you're not having to focus every 2 seconds. You can build max mana, make it so you don't have to focus every so often. And mana management in that regard is fine when I only have to deal with it every so often. Like for instance, the spell EQ build that Perry was bringing up, you can build max mana. You can actually do this really heavily with like attunement and stuff, get over 400 max mana, right? And use your spell EQ, bam, 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 right? You run out of mana after like a minute or so, or 2, right, of clearing a monolith. You know what you do? You turn it into Spriggan form, boo, 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 back to 400 mana, swap back out, good to go. That's fine. That I'm okay with that. The problem is when I cast my Racing Strike, it uses all my mana, then I have to use Rive 20 times to get my mana back up, and then use a Racing Strike again. That's where this starts having problems, when you have to do 20 different actions to get your mana back up to full to use your ability again.
I'm going to interrupt you. As long as we're talking about Sentinel stuff right now, I want to use this as a way to transition.
It's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, here it is. We're not going to spend 2 hours on this, even though we could. So you're pretty close to talking about cooldowns, right? Like every 4 seconds you could you get like 1 free Forge Strike. Like your next skill every 4 seconds is free or something like that, right?
Oh no!
But like,
no. Do we have to talk about it?
What, like it? So
Any
you want?
mains?
JayTheProduct is telling me that he wants cool, interesting decisions about how to use your mana. I think that guzzling your mana and using Volatile Reversal fits your description.
And I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I do agree. I think
now that's the problem
is a really
I don't
cool
think
skill.
the devs agree
I don't want
with
to
us.
nerf,
That's the
but it's
problem.
getting nerfed.
Whoa.
That's the problem. Is like I don't think anyone else agrees with us, because we are, of course, Volatile Reversal enjoyers, but I don't think anyone else is.
Wait, do people not like Volatile? It's like the most fun skill in the game. Do people not like this?
I know it's amazing.
Volatile Reversal, dude. You cannot put Volatile Reversal in a build without everybody going, okay, but can I take out Volatile Reversal?
I can go
really?
the comments. Yeah, no, he's right.
It's like Herald of Ice. It's so good.
No, he's right. He's right. I've gotten so many comments on that. On like, oh, how could I play this without Volatile Reversal? Like, for instance, literally, when I was playing, remember when Judgment was a thing? Is it still? But remember when Judgment Shield Bash was a thing, and you like did like stupid amounts of DPS for free, and you'd have to use Judgment, use Shield Bash, use Shield Bash. What the fuck is that? Use Javelin, Shield Bash, Judgment, Reversal. I like that. I loved it. It was a combo build. You could either just Judgment Reversal, bam, you have clear, move around, or Javelin, Shield Bash.
I'll take a good combo build, yeah.
And I like that. That was fun. Someone PM'd me on Discord. They're like, I don't like the fact that I have to use Volatile Reversal. Is there a way to get around it? And I'm like,
yeah, build 50 mana regen. Go ahead.
No. And then you know what he did? He went to the forums and he made a very long post talking about how you shouldn't have to use Volatile Reversal to just sustain Judgment. Now, while I agree with him, it was rather funny. It was rather funny how salty he was about having to use Volatile Reversal, even though you should be using it anyways, even if you're playing a Consecrated Order build, because of the increased damage and all that. And that's how I knew about the Judgment Nurse before they came, because Trass, I remember, responded that lengthy post with another lengthy post, and it was great to see his insights on it. But that is the length people are willing to go. They're willing to go to insane lengths just to not have to press Volatile Reversal.
I just want to point out, sorry.
Volatile Reversal is like, it's a movement skill. It gives you attack and cast speed, it gives you movement speed, it gives enemies take increased damage, it hits, it applies ailments, and it fixes your mana. So it does, roughly speaking, everything.
It's the god tier skill.
If somebody doesn't want to do that, if somebody wants to like use a different route from, there should be a different route to deal with your mana outside of Volatile. Volatile should not
use Vengeance, bro.
It should not be the only answer. How much worse should a build be if they don't use Volatile Reversal? Because right now, at the very least, it probably quadruples your damage.
Here's the thing. Even if there is a node in Volatile Reversal that turns off the mana gain and mana suck, or whatever you want to call it, on reversal, and you still use that. Even if your build doesn't use mana, you take Volatile Reversal and you remove the mana gain, because it drastically reduces the cooldown, and it's even better. Volatile Reversal is that strong that, like, even if we're not talking about mana, you want Volatile Reversal in your build. Like, Volatile Reversal makes your build so much better. Like, at the absolute minimum, it's 120% more damage.
Volatile
That's if you're
Reversal
not playing a dot
build. I think it's the only reason I ever play melee in Last Epoch, like melee builds, because of how fun it is to zip around with Volatile Reversal. That is the only reason I play melee builds. If it was not for Volatile Reversal, I would never touch it. I would never touch Rive. I would never touch Vengeance. I would never touch any of these because they feel terrible to play. But Volatile Reversal is so dang good that it makes those builds playable.
So again, I'm just going to say this again. Like there should be a competing strategy for dealing with your mana. If, like, for those people who really don't like using the skill, if they really hate it, there should be something else. But like, how much worse should it be? It shouldn't be like, 1/5 of your damage.
It shouldn't be worse, honestly. It should just be an option.
I'm with you there.
See, the problem is, in the Judgment example, this is kind of a niche example, because with Judgment, you end up building over like 500 mana, and like the only thing that is realistically able to deal with that is Reversal. I think there should be cases in the game that are like that, where you can only do that. But at the same time, if you want to, yeah, there should be a way of dealing with that. But the problem is like, what would you introduce that could beat Volatile Reversal in terms of giving you 500 mana? So that might be more of a problem with Judgment itself than Reversal. But this problem extends to like all the other Sentinel builds as well.
Can we talk about the fact how, so the podcast is on resources, and we have briefly touched on a couple of other resources, but we just keep talking about mana because it's the only one that really does feel awful.
Yeah, let's talk about money. Diablo Immortal, let's go.
so mana, cooldowns, life if you're playing like a lich build.
I think that should be
minions if you're playing like sacrifice or like marrow shards, sacrifices your minions for you. What else is on your mind?
Not as mana, do they though? Rage, we've already done Rage. Rage is kind of like, I don't think Rage is particularly well designed because you just take Gardens of Rage.
Rage in PoE as well. I really like Rage in PoE, like having to use Rage Vortex,
building it up,
having to build up your Rage, building up your Rage and getting a benefit. That's a resource. I like that. We're gonna talk about Rage.
I just think it's really telling that there's a lot of resources in Last Epoch, like you said, Rage, cooldowns, life, like it all works in different builds and in different ways. But mana's the only one that just doesn't feel good to build and play around. You're always gonna, if you play a build that is really heavy utilizing mana, you're gonna be hitting a point where you're like, man, I wish this didn't use mana, or oh man, I
Or
wish.
like
I
I wish I could
Or you
literally
just
double
quit the
my mana
game in
regeneration.
case of some people.
Wish I just had mana leech. Can we just get mana leech, please?
No, we can be more thoughtful than that. We can fix the
No, we
problem
can't.
without having to give in to our demons.
I just think cut all the mana cost in half and see how the game feels at that point, and then go.
Jay, do
really
you
we
like
can do stuff like that?
do you like mana generation, mana spender setups?
I like builder spenders. Like I play a ret paladin in World
Static
of
Orb is a
Warcraft.
perfect
I like
example
builder
of one.
spenders.
Yeah, Static Orb is a perfect example of that. With
Or
the
maybe
focus
like
stuff.
like detonating arrow plus puncture.
It depends on what version of detonating arrow you're talking about. Are you talking about
Personally, I
tendrils
think
or
builder
without?
spenders feel better with charges, where you
Mhm.
generate charges and then
Mhm.
utilize them with your attacks, as
Like for
opposed to
instance,
using a generator to generate mana.
like
and
for
then
instance, when I
dumping
was
it out.
playing multi-strike with the charges and then you cast like the forward strike, that felt great.
Mhm.
Multi-strike didn't feel great, but the gaining the charges and then using forward strike felt great. Sorry, go ahead, Jay. I keep talking over you.
Where was I?
Oh, you were talking about mana spender
Oh yeah,
generators
I
with
would
cooldowns instead.
I would prefer to see like big attacks build up charges with generators as opposed to mana, just because
So
something about that bar going down, man. It rubs me the wrong way.
maybe what you're saying is we should have something akin to like vol skills.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, why not?
So you would want something where like
option.
you cast your like lightning blast 5 times and then you cast your static orb for like big damage.
Okay, maybe not, because like, well, I
Not
used
that
to
many
hate Firebrand, right? Absolutely despised it. Firebrand, I thought it was like the worst feeling playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, huh. Actually,
Flame Reeve is great.
it's quite nice. Yeah, you chuck out 4 to 6 Firebrands, and then you delete the whole screen.
Flame Reeve is the perfect example of how how builder spenders should feel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't cost mana, but it costs charges. Now, the thing is, you got to either spend mana to get those charges faster, or you have to attack faster, and it takes resources, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes button clicks, it takes thought process about the build. You have to build attack speed. You can't just not build attack speed, for otherwise it'll feel like shit. And that's where the complexity comes in
as well.
Yeah,
because you're like, it's all about positioning. You're getting your charges up, but then you're like, can I actually dump these now?
And
do I need to keep going a little bit?
You're dancing with the mobs too,
early?
right? You're like, you're jabbing them. You're like, oh, and then bam.
Dancing with the mobs.
If you get the hitboxes
okay,
right,
okay.
you can actually hit mobs behind you with it. It feels pretty good.
They had peak Spellblade. Like that right there is peak Spellblade.
Yeah.
That's how I want Spellblade to feel for me.
There's a reason that's the best Spellblade build right now.
Yeah, and like Surge is very close to it. Have you seen how much damage Surge has been able to poop out, Jay?
Surge is still just.
It's like 7 million.
I'm not quite
like,
on board with Surge yet. I need a little bit.
You need to use Vion's Chariot as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Damage.
Yeah, after Vion's Chariot, it went from like okay, and the doubling of added damage effectiveness. Like if you want to play single target, Surge is the way to go, man. Like it's a lot of damage. Now, obviously, Flame Reeve just has a beat, not because of the fact that like it can still deal single target, but it also does clear. Well, Surge is a little clear inept, but if you spend a quarter of all your points into the AoE, it's not that bad.
Cool. I'm gonna bring up one more mana topic while we're talking about this. So there are a couple skills in Last Epoch that drain mana per second. We have things like Bone Curse that can drain mana per second. Aura of Decay can also be spec to drain mana per second. I want to hear from you two. Is that something that should be in the game more often or less often than it is right now?
Go ahead, Jay.
Well, does Warpath count as a mana drain?
I mean, I guess if you're playing like that stupid version I was trying, like the Void one with like the reversal.
Oh god, that was so bad. Yeah, no.
It was so funny. It has so much
really
damage.
like Aura of Decay, right? I really like Aura of Decay as an ability and as a concept. And I'm just gonna, I know I keep making this point. The best way to play Aura of Decay, you make it not drain mana.
Or life.
So what does that say about mana drain as a mechanic? I think we don't have the resources in the game currently to make that kind of playstyle feel good, because a point you made earlier, Perry, you spec mana regen on every single piece of gear, and you're barely breaking 24 to 25, depending upon how badly the stat range is rolled. You know?
So let me.
And you need to dedicate every single prefix you can, and then your damage is like you literally cut your potential damage in half.
But
because
people
everywhere you put
talk
mana,
about people talk
damage.
about my gear not mattering in Last Epoch, and they say like you can take off
Who
all your
says
gear and
that?
still smash the whole game.
Blizzard.
I
does
mean, yeah,
specifically.
but like that's a different. That you if you put on gear, you'll stomp it even harder.
But I need my gear for mana regeneration so I can make these bad choices about the skill. Wait a second.
No, wait.
Okay,
Okay, let me actually bring something up here.
He's got his
So-
wallet out. He's
Oh
playing
yeah,
Diablo Immortal.
yeah. I'm getting ready. No, so one example. It's not exactly mana regen, but it's as close as we're gonna get it in like a capacity that is good or feels good. Well, as good as you can get this build to feel. Like,
Go on.
don't judge me, please. So, do you two remember the build I really enjoyed that I actually got second place in a Sentinel tourney with? It was the Rive Abyssal Echoes Ignite build. You know, ignite,
yeah.
consume it.
Like that.
I put, you'd put sigils on autocast, right? And you'd use Arrive to gain mana back. That felt as close to, I think, mana drain would feel. And I think mana drain would be great on builds like that, or
What do you mean mana
or
drain?
vengeance.
You mean mana leech?
Well, you put the sigils on autocast so you don't have to deal with it. Okay, and then you gain mana back when you're using Rive or Vengeance, right? I was always at full mana with Rive or Vengeance, yada yada yada. And the reason why it feels so good is because since Rive is giving you back mana, you don't have to worry about mana, and you can actually use that infinite mana resource you have access to. You can use it, and I think builds like Vengeance and stuff like that have these access to all these things, they should, like, that's where mana drain is good. The problem is if they implement more stuff like that, then we're just further making the problem even worse in terms of big hitting skills and stuff like that. In terms, because like if all the mana drain stuff is really good, right, that we add in, then the big skills, they get screwed over. Because like, are you really gonna like put sigils on autocast on like an Erasing Strike build, like stuff like that?
And you don't want to put in Rive on every single
I'm
build, right?
I'm getting
Mhm.
distracted. Hold on. Why are we auto-casting sigils?
It's
saying-
mana drain. It's mana
Yeah.
drain. It's like a mana drain. Like you turn
What's
it
the
on.
cooldown on sigils again? Like
It's like
what
1
is it?
second. You drain
second.
like 20
You're
mana
saying,
per
like-
second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you're
and
not
that's a
able to
mana
Wait,
drain.
does
generate-
Rive deal more damage the less mana you have?
No. You're at full mana. It's one of the only ways of getting away with it and not caring.
He's saying that's how mana drain should feel. It's like just enough, and because of the tools you have at your disposal, you're able to keep ticked over while your mana is essentially draining.
Wait,
doing
didn't
equation.
hold on, I'm so wait, what? Didn't you just have sigils on kill?
Well, the thing
You have
is,
both.
it's for boss fights though specifically. But
Yeah.
the reason why this feels good, remember the hammer throw build that like turns off its mana and like
Okay,
always
now
has
I'm
4
with you.
sigils?
I like this example more.
That's
Okay,
like-
I was
that's
so
what I
distracted
mean.
by Rive.
That's one.
He's
build that
being
uses
lazy
it.
and doesn't want to sell.
All right, I got it. We're lazy. All right, now I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that if sigils had a note in it that just said, you turn it on and you get the sigils per second, it boops up, boop, 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 and it drained like 20 mana per second.
Okay.
It would literally
I-
be the same exact thing as putting it on
Yes.
autocast. That's what I mean.
Okay.
It's like an aura. It's like Holy Aura. You maybe make a note in Holy Aura that makes it so it
And then you could
costs
use
mana
one of
per
your
second.
0 mana cost sentinel skills. It gives you mana back
Yeah.
because you okay, good. Now
That's
I
how
see what
mana drain should work. Like if they're gonna introduce it like auras, that's how auras should
I
be
kinda get
introduced in like
where
Last
it's going, but it was a very roundabout, convoluted way to get there.
I like the Rive build. Okay, come on.
I just again.
why so somebody in Twitch chat is saying why not just use reversal?
Well,
Can we just do a
no,
podcast
Why,
on
yes.
reversal? Like I will come on.
we can
and just
literally
talk about
do one.
reversal for
Yeah,
an
that
hour.
would be a whole conversation.
We could do that. easily. There's enough content there.
And you know what, Jay, we might. So what I like to do, we're at the top of the hour at this point. What I try to do at the end of these podcasts is sneak in like one more topic just to see how much longer we can go. So I have my bonus round for what we're talking about. This is unrelated to mana actually, and it's slightly related to JayTheProduct. So our bonus round topic of the day is the Ailment Rework. So we've heard recently from the developers, this is not on a forum post somewhere, but they've talked about it a couple times in the dev stream, that ailments are going to be reworked in some capacity. Not only is poison going to be nerfed, because poison from now,
we assume that. Like,
if we put poison in multiplayer, it would be the most busted thing you've ever seen. So not only is poison going to be nerfed, but the other ailments will have ailment effects added to them, similar to how poison has some kind of ailment effect that lowers the resistance of the enemy per stack. There's going to be a big change coming up, and we don't really know what it is. Jay knows, but he's not going to tell us. He knows a little bit. So what's going on with this Ailment Rework? Dread, do you know anything about this?
So
we can't talk about it, can we?
I can talk about what I know from the dev clips that have been posted in Vision's Discord.
Okay, so this is public information.
Essentially, the TL. Well, this is from a dev stream. It's just I don't watch them. I just watch the clips. So with this specifically, essentially the idea is they want to rebalance ailments, right?
Yep.
And they're not entirely sure how they want to do it yet. They're not entirely sure how they want to do it. They want to think about putting extra effects on them, but they also don't want to just be lazy and be like, oh, ignite spreads, or they want to make it Last Epoch. They want to make it feel like Last Epoch. And
they want to add mana to ailments. Let's
like,
go.
We want Bleed to actually feel different than Ignite. We don't want it to just be a numbers game. We want it to be a gameplay impacting play. And there are some ways we can do that. There are some ways that are possible to do that. There's a lot of ideas. There's like 20,000 ideas, but all that matters is what they stick with, right? And that's like the thing.
Now, Jay, how would you feel about your character gaining like plus 1% mana regeneration for every stack of Ignite you have on enemies?
Yo, are they nerfing Bleeding Heart? Because like...
Probably.
I would hope so.
I would be stacking ailments on myself too. I'd be doing some shenanigans if they did that.
Okay, you want to ignite yourself or bleed yourself?
Ignite, poison, like you could do all of the above. Ignite, bleed, poison.
Hot.
Let's just
I like
go.
it.
Let's see how many procs
we can damn ourselves too using marinas.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I would love that. Some like if mana regen per like I don't know stack of bleed, ignite, or poison on you.
That's hot. No, this is a cool idea. I like this.
Ailment effects too. They don't have to be directly with the ailment, right? They don't have to be directly with the ailment. Like for instance, Rive, it has that node that consumes the ignites, and then you get a bunch of damage. And then of course you have like enchant weapon that has like to consume the ignite to cause a big hit and stuff like that. And the reason why I like that approach is it allows every single skill to feel different. Well, sure, yeah, ignite's just a number, but applying ignite and then using it in a specific way feels great. Like for instance, imagine a world, right, where like Forge Strike, right,
deals damage.
It's the perfect example of a skill that looks cool, feels good, is not good. Yeah. And that's why I like it. Now,
it really is.
It is the perfect example. It's very close. And the only thing that beats it is like Racing Strike, but I don't want to talk about Racing Strike all day. Now, and I really like Forge Strike more. And the thing is, imagine if there was a node inside Forge Strike that for every ignite on the enemy, right, or something like that. Imagine if there's like, if the enemy is ignited, right, you gain mana.
Right? Just mana or mana regen?
Just one mana. Just
one
like
mana on hit or something?
Yeah, so for instance, and it's mana on hit, but it requires investment in some way. You have to ignite. You can't use it on the bleed variant because it turns all the bleed, or you could. You just have to have an outside source of ignite, and that makes ignite special. because
I
there's
just
no
want to
other way
say
of doing
immediately, I'm going to have to cut you off, Dread.
that. Mhm.
I don't like where this is going. I
know.
think that will create boring gearing decisions in
No,
that
I
you
agree.
just craft ignite chance on a weapon
I
and
agree.
you have infinite mana sustain.
No, I agree. But what I mean is, this is just for Forward Strike. This is a Forward Strike
Oh,
special.
okay. I
It's
thought you meant in
only for
general.
Forward Strike. No, it's a
Oh,
node
yeah.
inside
Okay, I'm
Forward
with you
Strike.
now.
Yeah.
I'm
and for
so
instance,
yeah.
go ahead.
I'm gonna point out two things. Like I'm with you
I'm
on the
sorry.
idea of using like
like that.
ailments as a binary.
Mana doesn't
Like,
have to be the only thing. That was
yeah,
just an
it could
idea
be
for
any
Forward
number.
Strike.
It could be like well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get into that. But I like the idea of using ailments as a binary. Like against ignited enemies, the thing happens. So you
Yes.
want at least some ignite chance and enough that the enemy gets ignited before they actually die.
Or
and you
if
just
they
raw
have
damage.
5 or more ignites, you do this special thing.
And
Like,
that's something that the devs have talked about very recently. There was a clip of Mike talking on one of the dev streams saying that, hey, one of the things that we could do in the future is similar to how they've changed the mastery trees. So like maybe there's a 0 out of 8 node, but there's a threshold at 5. And if you spec 5 nodes in, even if it's 5 out of 8, you get a nice little bonus. You can see
I
that in
love
like the
those.
base
Yeah, I
blade
love
master
those.
tree, for
That's
example. You get like some
It's
extra
like-
movement speed there.
And that's a lot like Masteries and Path of Exile that they recently introduced, and that's like it
Yeah.
feels so good. Masteries and Path of Exile, they feel good too. And like for instance, like we don't even have to talk about mana. Let's just assume, hey, Forward Strike. If you hit something with Forward Strike,
Fucking Forward Strike.
I'm
dude.
bringing it up again because it's in style. Okay, if you hit an enemy with Forward Strike and they have 5 ignites, you consume them. You proc a Flame Burst. How's that sound?
Sounds a lot like Flame Burst from the Holy
Yeah.
Aura, is what it sounds
But,
like.
but
Pretty
it's
sure
a
that's what
sentinel
you're
thing, right? But it's like Forward Strike 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however much you gotta get ignite
Mhm.
chance with this, right? Bam, and you hit it. You hit the ignites. You hit them so hard it explodes the ignite, and bam, right? And
This
that would
this
be
re-
so
this
cool.
reminds me of like 3-hit passives from League of Legends. I
Mhm.
love 3-hit passives
Yeah,
from League of
those are
Legends.
great.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. Like for poison, like Soul Feast has a node like that, except instead make it not busted with like the the gaining the armor.
Okay,
make it
don't gain
balanced.
infinite armor. Okay,
Yeah,
mark it
don't gain
down.
infinite, just like a different way. Like for instance, if you hit an enemy that has like 10 or more poisons or whatever on them, you get like 40%, 20% more armor. As not as a stacking thing, just as a binary do or don't, right? Or for instance, let me think of this. Like for bleed, right? Like for instance, like puncture, you have that bleed pop thing, right? Make it instead. The bleed pop also causes like an AOE, like a little bit of an AOE, like a bleed pop.
Or maybe
right?
the bleed pop applies a stack of frailty or something like that.
Like frailty.
Oh.
It could apply a stack of critical vulnerability. That'd be cool.
Oh.
Like that'd be cool. There's a lot of things you could do with this, and that's what I like about, like for instance, imagine if you're playing like a sorcerer build, or a spellblade, and there was a node that said in Mana Strike, if the enemy has like 5 or more stacks of Electrify on them, when you hit it with Mana Strike, it casts Lightning Bolt for you at the target.
Go
Or
on.
something
We
like
know
that.
it's gonna be a noodle and
Go-
do
go on?
easy DPS.
Well,
I want that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is you apply Electrify, and then you'd scale spell damage, and then you'd use Lightning Blast or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this. Like, I'm obviously just throwing stuff at the wall, but like
Yeah.
that's the stuff I want to see. If they want to make them unique without having to make the actual ailments unique themselves, that is the best way of going about it. Because whenever you think of Ignite, then at that point you think of, oh, it does this cool thing with this skill, or it does this different thing with this skill. It not only makes Ignite not only just a number, it makes it a whole archetype that, well, not a whole archetype, but multiple different archetypes across different classes, and certain classes use ignites, poisons, bleeds, all differently.
I like what you're saying. I like it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, Jay, I want to throw a meme into the conversation, but do you have any final thoughts on the ailment rework, things that you do want to see, don't want to see?
I just hope Salt the Wound survives, man.
I think your unique item's great. I hope it survives as well.
Already dead.
Nah, I feel pretty good about it. I think the
They caught
smidge
you.
of knowledge I know over you guys, I feel pretty good about.
They caught you.
Okay.
They caught you in the act. They're like,
I-
you can't make good supporter uniques. That's not allowed. They
I
caught Quiet.
I think it's about time Poison got nerfed. So that's nice.
Well,
Mhm.
Flurry's
Ignite
dead because of
desperately needs a
poison.
buff. I personally would love to see the ailments be more specialized. So like something I've talked about with Dread in the past is I would like to see. There's already a thing for it, but I wouldn't see Ignite just have like giga spread. Like if an enemy is ignited, it ignites enemies around it, and that just spreads and prolifes and will absolutely decimate AoE. But noodles on bosses, you know.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then maybe
Every 5 stacks of ignite causes spreading flames to happen.
yeah, something like that. And then
Wait.
like for bleed to maybe like the more stacks of bleed you have on the target,
we,
or like the lower the enemy's health gets, maybe the like more damage the bleed hits for, so it just is better on a sustained boss fight, you know,
guys,
stuff like that. And then like frostbite, frostbite's a weird one, isn't it?
Well, frostbite
Because
has a secondary effect already. It makes it
it's
more
the
likely for
freeze
them to be
stuff, but
frozen.
nobody uses
yeah,
freeze.
but like who really? You still can't
freeze
freeze
is an
bosses,
ailment. We can
you
talk
know?
about freeze.
So like, frostbite's a weird one because I don't really know what you could do outside of what it already has with the increased freeze.
Well,
Increased
if it-
effective chill.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that what it does?
No, it doesn't do that right now, but it could.
Oh, I was gonna say like, what am I? Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah,
Guys.
no, there we go. That could be good because I mean, you can really slow some stuff down to a crawl, and if you increase that, you would just imagine Void Chicky just not being able to fly, just like very slowly gliding towards the edge of the screen.
The ailment stuff is
I would
so
like
much
that.
fun to think about. But
So
Dread,
I
like
don't
you said
wanna-
early on, like I can't wait to see what they do with it.
I don't want to ruin the conversation, but this is important. Look at this clip. Look at that manifest armor, man. Oh,
I'm not going to look at that right now.
my God. I'm sorry. I just looked at it. I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, it is that good. It looks so sexy.
So
wish most
as-
people look like that.
manifest armor.
As we wrap up the podcast for the day, I just do want to mention briefly that we've had something happen in the world of video games recently. What's the best Diablo Immortal joke that you've heard over the past couple days?
That'll be
What's-
20 dollars to hear
What's
the joke.
the
Sorry
best
about-
dunk you've got on it?
Give me a second. I gotta find the comment. So I and Tenki and I, we were memeing about it on VC, and I was like, hey, I want to see what these positive reviews on Metacritic are by users, and oh my God, this is the best comment I've seen. Toxic gamer syndrome run amok. This game
Coffee pad.
is amazing. It is completely free. Yes, you can do everything in the game without spending a penny. It just takes longer to earn gems. Don't listen to the media. They just have it out for a blizzard. That is, I don't know what to say. That's all I can say. That's the best
I've got
comment
some
ever.
kind of hot takes on Diablo Immortal if we want to get.
Yeah, we can talk
serious
about it for
about
like
it.
a few minutes. Yeah. I don't
Okay, a
mind.
few minutes, I'll take it. Hot takes on
Like,
Diablo
This is an
Immortal. Go ahead.
ARPG podcast at this point.
I
so
played
it
the
is-
game. I've beaten the campaign. I've done a bit of endgame shenanigans, and like, I'll play a mobile game for every now and then, right? Like, I have no issues with mobile games, and I really enjoyed Diablo Immortal.
Oh,
I
no.
think no, Dread. Let me finish
Yeah,
because
continue. Yeah, you're good.
like I generally think out of all the mobile games I've played, it's by far up there and one of the best. It has
What, you haven't
like, the
played
gameplay is
Toxic Town?
amazing. The actual gameplay is so good, and I had a good time with it. And I think the biggest issue with it is obviously the predatory pay model. The fact that like it's so egregious. It's already been banned in multiple countries in the EU for gambling laws, and like ultimately the game itself, I don't feel I want to keep playing it because of the good gameplay. I feel I need to keep playing it, but the reason I need to keep playing it is because the devs are just trying to make me pay money. Every single minute I spend on that game is me going, oh, I'm missing out if I don't play the game. And the devs are there going, yes, yes. Every single minute he's there is 1 minute closer he gets to going, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to spend some money. I want the devs to treat me as a gamer better because the game itself is excellent. There's a little bit of scuffed polish from the PC port, but that's not an issue on the phone version. But I just want the devs to treat me as a consumer better. That's really what it comes down to.
Remember back in the day when games were banned because like someone, in the game you like ran over people with your car and stuff. Like you could do that and you could do other stuff. Remember when games were just simple and they just got banned because of violence? Remember that?
I played Manhunt as a kid
because they let people spend too much money. Go ahead, Perry.
I said I played Manhunt when I was a child, and I don't know how that got under my parents' radar.
I played GTA before. Don't worry. I had
Manhunt is something else. I've played Manhunt. That shit was wild.
It's a messed up game for a kid to play. I'll tell you that much.
I don't know how that ever got released.
Good God.
Yeah, and actually, Nair brought up a good point. It makes Lost Ark look like it has zero pay-to-win aspects, and that's a good example of how. Because like a lot of people, they bring up to me and they talk about like, oh well, it was designed in the East, right? It was designed like Diablo Immortal started in the East because Tencent and all that, and yada yada yada, Blizzard and all that, right? Well, and me and Tenki were talking about this too, and we came to the conclusion that for this to ever end, for this predatory monetization stuff, no matter how long it lasts, I mean, no matter like how much we stomp it out here in the West, it's always going to creep its way back because of the fact that it's just an accepted thing in the accepted thing, right? And it's like, yeah, it's okay to spend $200 on a mobile game just to get 2% farther. It's all right to do that, and I don't know about you guys, I don't think that's okay either.
I just want to say, at Nair specifically, it does make Lost Ark look like it has no pay to win, and now I'm not defending this, but it is, out of all the mobile games I've played, it's no more or less egregious than any of them.
Yeah, it's just
this is what mobile games are like, and it is horrific that the industry is like this. But I watched a great video on it earlier. It's sad to say, but the mobile gaming industry is quite a bit bigger than the PC one. Like, you can believe that or not, but if you Google it, it's true.
A lot more people have a phone than they do like a gaming PC.
It's not. No, it's not good.
It's becoming real now.
You can't compare it to a PC game because it's not a PC game. It's a mobile game, and you got to compare it to other mobile games, and that's when you should go. Wait a minute, they're all like this. How the fuck is this okay?
Yeah, there you go. All right, so here's the hot takes. I'm going to use some popular games as an example. Is Path of Exile pay to win? Dread, what do you think?
No. Not
pay to win. Jay, what do you think?
Buy your stashes, you're good to go. Just buy your stashes.
Wait, sorry, what was the question?
Is Path of Exile pay to win?
Not really. I consider the for like the amount of hours you get in Last Epoch, if you buy stash tabs, that's just you purchasing the game. I think PoE is pay to play.
I used to tell people that Path of Exile was like a $20 game. It just depends when you pay the upfront cost. So yeah. I agree with Ziz, by the way. I think Path of Exile is a pay to win game. It's like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 100, but I mean it's pay to win. It has that one aspect of it, which turns it from like not in the category to in the category. Yeah. So here's my other one that I want to pose a question to you. Dread, is Magic the Gathering pay to win?
You're asking me this, and you know what kind of decks I play?
Tell me,
I play freaking I play like freaking aristocrats, and you're asking me if it's pay to win or not.
Is it pay to win? Is it a pay to win game?
Yes.
It's a pay to win game. All right, Jay, what do you think? Is Magic the Gathering pay to win?
I've never played Magic the Gathering, bro. Sorry.
Card game. Think of
no
Hearthstone.
Opinion. It's a card game?
Yes, it's a card
game.
I thought it was ubiquitous enough game.
You can go on eBay and sink money for the best cards. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I know how this shit works.
There you go.
See, the problem is, the thing about card games, though, specifically, and Path of Exile specifically as well, is these pay-to-play aspects, which they are pay-to-play. They're not pay-to-win, because specifically this one point. You can invest so much currency into Magic the Gathering, but if you have the same 60 card deck as your opponent, that you spent the same amount of money, right? There's no way of spending more money to get an advantage over your opponent after the terms have been equaled. If you buy the same legacy deck as your opponent, you will both be on equal playing field in terms of that.
So here's my answer. It's pretty much what you just said. To me, Magic the Gathering is an extraordinarily expensive hobby, but it's not pay to win. It's just way more expensive than you think it is.
And like Path of Exile is the same way. Tenki actually brought this up to me as well. I was talking with him again. We'll have him here soon, by the way. And he put it very simply. Even if you buy premium stash tabs, even if you buy a billion fragment tabs and a billion currency tabs, if you don't have the knowledge and how to use mechanics, you're stuck. You're not going to be able to like beat someone who knows what they're doing. Like look at the people that are winning the races, right? The hardcore solo self-found races that PoE's been putting on. Like look at Ben, like Lighty Ben, whatever you want to call it. He won that, and like yeah, sure he had a tab, but he has the same tab that everyone else has. If you like Path of Exile, you'll have the same tab that everyone else does, right? That's the thing. And
that's why I consider PoE pay to play, not pay to win. Because if you want to play the game, you will have to spend that money. Ultimately.
Now, obviously, there's
RMT
RMT and all that, but we won't get into that.
But that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I know. No, I agree. That's not their fault.
No, yeah, and the Spectre MTX, that's kind of pay to win.
Yeah, you're funny. But no. So that's the thing. What is different? What is the difference between pay to play and pay to win? Right. That's the difference right there. We just explained it. The bar, the limit. Okay, I can buy my stashes. After that, I can buy pretty cosmetics. Sure, my ethereal knives look like as though it's doing more damage. But, you know, it's not going to make my ethereal knives build better than the opponent that has less ethereal knives MTX, although it does, you know. But still, you know, same thing with Magic the Gathering. Like, you can't just keep paying and paying and paying to get it. But in these games, like Diablo Immortal, there is a limit, I guess. Quinn hasn't found it yet. He's $15,000 in.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, he is specifically trying to pay as much as possible to show you how pay to win it is. He has gone $15,000 without a single one of the endgame chase items that you can try to purchase. And maybe that's the bar. Maybe that's how they stop people, but then that's very predatory. And that's the problem. The bar of where you stop, right, is way too high in that specific circumstance.
Something to talk about as well, which is like, I want to talk about, sorry, no,
go
at
ahead,
the end, but this is straight shady, right? The way Diablo have gotten past the EU gambling laws is that, because ultimately, like the way the rifts work and the crest system, which is what Quinn's spending all his money on, it's a loot box.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have to do the rift before you get the reward, there's an element of skill involved, and the time is randomized, and that makes it able to not be considered a loot box. That's predatory.
What a scumbag
because it means
tactic.
they don't have to tell you the odds of what the items are, and allows them to ship it to all the EU countries. Otherwise, it would have been banned in a lot more.
Thank you, Blizzard.
But it has still, like, I think Norway and I think Denmark, a couple of them have been able to ban it. And I think more should. And that should be the wake-up call to be like, wow, this game is egregious and predatory and just straight up shady and does not treat its consumers well at all.
I want to make this offer to the audience, whether you're watching live or on YouTube or something, but if you give me $110,000, I promise not to spend a penny of it on Diablo Immortal. I'm just going to make that offer right now. If that interests you, slide in my DMs. They're open. But yeah, I will not spend any of it on that garbage game.
If you
I'll take
give
that
me
too.
if you give me
I'll vouch for
$100,000, what I will do, I will dress up as Diablo, okay, and I will let you hit me with the sword until I knock out. And if that gives you a better experience than Diablo Immortal, then I'll say, well, money spent.
Why do you
Yeah,
have to
man, the
one
gameplay's
up me
pretty good,
right
though.
after I make my offer?
It's a joke.
No one's gonna take my offer now.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
going out to get a bank loan already.
Get wrecked. I'll call suit size small. I'll learn how to cosplay. I can be Diablo.
All right, I think my contribution. Hey, thank you. I think with those couple comments there, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. We've talked about mana. We've talked about different resources that appear in Last Epoch and in other
even
games.
more
like Path of Exile.
resources.
We've talked about
Forward strike.
ailment reworks and some like pseudo NDAs that Jay is under. We've talked a little bit about pay to win and Diablo Immortal just because
That's a
that
resource,
happened
man.
recently.
Money's a resource.
It's a good game.
It,
Play it if
money
you
is
have
a
fun with it.
resource. Oh God.
It is. That's why we brought it up. It
Okay.
technically is. It's in
So-
topic.
With that, whether you are here live on Twitch or whether you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, thank you so much for helping us enjoy Last Epoch and these other things we bring up in the conversation as well. Because this is a good time and we love having this podcast. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.